The Princess Royal is not a gift bag for the Parker Bowles family. That was the line that cut through palace whispers like broken glass. Not a press release. Not a grand speech. Just one cold sentence, said in the kind of tone that makes a whole room go quiet. And once that line started moving through royal circles, the story stopped being about a title and started becoming something much darker. Today we are diving into a royal dispute that, if the whispers are to be believed, touched one of the most protected honors in the British monarchy. At the center of it all was Princess Anne, King Charles's sister, the woman many see as the hardest working royal alive. On the other side, according to journalists, commentators, and palace gossip repeated for months, was a reported idea tied to Queen Camilla's daughter, Laura Lopes. And that is where people stopped smiling. Because this was not some spare ribbon, a soft little honor, or a seat at a family lunch. The title in question was Princess Royal. Rare. Historic. Heavy. A title wrapped in bloodline, symbolism, duty, and old royal rules that do not bend easily for modern family feelings. That alone would have been enough to set off alarm bells. But there was one problem bigger than all the others. The title was not even vacant. Princess Anne already held it. She was alive, still working, still carrying out a brutal public schedule, and still doing the kind of service many younger royals would struggle to match. So when talks spread that Laura Lopes had somehow been floated near that title, the reaction was instant. Traditionalists hated it. Royal watchers mocked it. And Anne's defenders saw it as something close to an insult. Because Anne is not a decorative royal. She never was. From the beginning, she came across as something harder, almost flinty. No fairy tale softness. No carefully packaged sparkle. No need to turn herself into a sweet storybook princess. She was shaped by duty, discipline, routine, and a kind of royal toughness that now feels almost old-fashioned. And maybe that is exactly why this story hit such a nerve. What many people don't know is that Anne's place in royal life was not built through charm campaigns or glossy reinvention. It was earned the slow way. Year after year. Event after event. Quiet work. Hard work. The kind of work that does not trend unless something goes wrong. Agricultural shows. Charity visits. Prison work. Military links. Community duties. Travel without fuss. Long days without performance. She did the labor. That matters here. Because when a title like Princess Royal is tied to a woman like Anne, people do not just see rank. They see proof. They see record. They see a life already spent carrying the monarchy on tired shoulders while others got the headlines. So when Laura Lopes' name reportedly entered that space, even as gossip, it felt explosive. Laura herself has mostly lived quietly. She is not known as a working royal. She is not built into the daily machinery of crown service. She is known far more for private life and the art world than for public duty under the monarchy. That difference became the heart of the outrage. Many were not simply asking whether she was likable, respectable, or close to her mother. They were asking something much more brutal. Had she earned even a shadow of comparison? To Anne's supporters, the answer was obvious. No. And that is why this was never just a debate over names. It became a fight about what the monarchy still means when nobody is supposed to be watching too closely. Is it bloodline? Is it service? Is it continuity? Or can old royal symbols now be softened, stretched, and passed around to fit modern family arrangements? Those questions turned one rumor into a palace storm. Accounts from insiders and royal commentators painted the same picture again and again. They described the title as untouchable while Anne lived. They described the idea of shifting its meaning as reckless. They described William, too, as someone said to have taken the issue seriously. In part because Princess Charlotte is widely seen by many royal watchers as the natural future holder of that same title one day. And suddenly the whole matter became bigger than Camilla, bigger than Laura, even bigger than Anne. It became about the line. The line of blood. The line of duty. The line the monarchy cannot cross without starting to look less like an institution and more like a family business. But there is more to this story. Because the fury was not only about Anne's workload or Laura's lack of one. It was also about timing, memory, and royal pain that never fully leaves the room. Charles and Camilla's marriage had already come through decades of scandal, judgment, survival, and slow public repair. For some critics, this reported title idea felt like a move beyond survival. It looked, to them, like expansion. A step from acceptance into entitlement. And that is where the mood changed from gossip to something colder. Because once people start feeling that history itself is being tampered with, palace arguments stop being private. They become moral. Even symbolic. Even tribal. And, as always, said little. That silence made everything louder. She did not rush out with a denial. She did not complain. She did not perform hurt feelings in public. She simply kept working, which in royal terms can be the sharpest answer of all. While the whispers swirled, she stayed on schedule, stayed visible, stayed in. And in doing that, she reminded people of the thing many had almost forgotten. Some royal titles are not glamorous prizes. They are burdens carried over a lifetime. That was the emotional core of the backlash. Not jewels. Not ceremony. Not family pride. Burden. Princess, and had carried hers. The question was whether someone else, brought closer to the royal house through marriage rather than direct line or public service, could ever be placed in the same frame without making the whole system look foolish. That was the real scandal. And once you ask that question, the past comes rushing in. Because this fight did not begin with Camilla. It began centuries earlier. To understand why the reported Laura Lopes idea caused so much anger, you have to go back long before Charles, Camilla, or even Anne. The title of Princess Royal is old. Very old. It was created in 1642 by King Charles I for his daughter Mary. The idea was shaped by the French title Madame Royale, and from the start it was meant to signal the highest female honor inside the royal bloodline. Not just any woman near the crown. Not any royal relation by marriage. Not a useful family favorite. A daughter of the sovereign. That was the point. And over time, that point became almost sacred. What many people don't know is that this title was never handed out casually, even when the fit looked obvious. There could only be one Princess Royal at a time, and the holder kept it for life. That meant even women who might seem next in line had to wait, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. That history matters more than it first appears. Because it shows that the title was built to resist convenience. There is a perfect example in the royal story itself. When George VI became king, his eldest daughter was the future Queen Elizabeth II. She was the obvious royal daughter of the sovereign. Yet she did not receive the title of Princess Royal because the previous holder, Princess Mary, was still alive. No shortcuts. No special rearranging. No emotional exceptions. The rules held. That old pattern is one reason palace traditionalists reacted so sharply to the modern rumor. If even Elizabeth had to wait because protocol came first, then how could anyone seriously entertain the idea of giving the title to a stepdaughter outside the direct Windsor bloodline while Anne still held it? That question alone made the whole reported suggestion look impossible. And then there is Anne herself. Princess Anne had to wait until 1987 for Queen Elizabeth II to give her the title. She did not receive it simply because she existed. She received it after years of work, years of visibility, years of proving what kind of royal she would be. By then, she was already known as disciplined, unsentimental, and deeply serious about duty. That is important, because Anne is not only the current holder of the title. In many ways, she is the reason the title still means something strong to the public. Royal insiders remember the image well. Anne was the one who seemed built for pressure. The one who did not need endless polishing. The one who often looked like she had no time for silliness. She could be blunt. She could be brisk. She could make softness look optional. And people respected that. Her toughness became legend after the 1974 kidnapping attempt. A gunman confronted her. The moment was terrifying. Yet the line attached to and from that night still lives on because it sounded exactly like her. Not bloody likely. Whether people tell it with awe or delight, the effect is the same. It turned in from a royal figure into something more durable in the public imagination. She was not fragile. She was iron. That image kept building across the decades. She traded palace fuss for work boots at Gatcombe Park. She repeated coats. She showed up prepared. She took on unglamorous duties. She built a reputation on stamina instead of sparkle. And then came one of the most telling choices of her life. And refused titles for her own children. Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall were not pushed into extra royal styling. And chose a different path. She wanted them to live more freely, without leaning too hard on inherited rank. That decision now hangs over this whole controversy like a moral spotlight. Because critics looked at that old choice and then looked at the rumor about Laura Lopes. And the contrast was brutal. One mother seemed to step back from privilege for her children. The other, critics said, appeared to be reaching for more. That comparison may not be fair in every detail, but it is exactly the kind of comparison that fuels royal backlash. It turns procedure into character. It turns protocol into a test of values. Then there is Laura's position in all of this. She is Camilla's daughter from her first marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles. She has long lived near royal life without being part of the working royal machine. She is connected, yes. Known, yes. But woven into the official fabric of duty? Not in the way it is. Not in the way the title of Princess Royal has historically required. That was the warning sign many felt could not be ignored. Because once you start moving titles like this away from bloodline and service, where does it stop? If the eldest daughter rule can blur, if working duty can blur, if the meaning of direct royal inheritance can blur, then the monarchy begins to look less fixed and more negotiable. That is dangerous for an institution that survives by looking ancient, stable, and symbolically clean. Many are questioning how much flexibility such a system can survive before it stops feeling real. And according to the script you provided, that concern was not limited to old courtiers or dusty protocol lovers. Prince William was also said to view the issue through the future. Not just in today, but Charlotte tomorrow. That is where the pattern sharpens. Because Charlotte is widely seen by many royal watchers as the natural future Princess Royal after Anne. Not now. Not soon. But one day. She is the daughter of the future king. She sits inside the direct line. She is already watched for signs of composure, protocol, and royal instinct. So in the eyes of traditionalists, the path was clear. And now, Charlotte later. Anything else looked like interference. Anything else looked like somebody trying to step into a line that was never meant to be crossed. And then, according to whispers, the matter moved from murmurs into something much more serious. The background was over. The collision was coming. On this particular occasion, the real damage did not come from public screaming or some dramatic royal showdown in front of cameras. It came from the suggestion itself. That was enough. According to accounts repeated by royal commentators and insider gossip, the uproar began after the coronation, when questions of legacy, image, and the monarchy's new shape were already hanging over everything. Charles had become king. Camilla had become queen consort. The palace was entering a new phase. And with every new phase comes a dangerous question inside royal life. Who belongs closer to the center now? In that atmosphere, the reported idea that Laura Lopes might somehow be considered in relation to Princess Royal landed like a lit match. The details, as told in the script, suggest Camilla's reasoning was linked to a modern view of family proximity. Her children, in this reading, stood closer to the royal household than ever before. They should perhaps be seen differently. Perhaps honored differently. That was the theory. The reaction was savage. Because traditionalists did not hear modernization. They heard trespassing. And once that mood set in, the whole thing turned ugly with astonishing speed. Palace watchers began treating the issue not as a harmless maternal wish, but as a challenge to history itself. The idea of placing Laura near a title so deeply tied to royal blood and lifetime duty seemed, to Anne's defenders, almost absurd on its face. That is when the emotional charge became impossible to hide. And was still active. Still visible. Still taking on a huge public workload. In 2023, she reportedly even outpaced the king in official engagements. That matters because it turned the rumor into a direct comparison no one wanted to make. Anne, who had done the work for decades, and Laura, who had lived privately, were now being dragged into the same conversation. Many felt that was the insult. Not just the title itself, but the comparison. To place those two women anywhere near the same title felt, for many, like a bridge too far. And then another layer made everything worse. William. According to Palace Talk in the script, he saw the issue clearly and coldly. The Princess Royal title, in that view, belonged to blood, continuity, and a life shaped by service. Not marriage. Not closeness to the king through the queen consort. Not household affection. Not family preference. That position reportedly hardened the wider Windsor camp. Suddenly Camilla, if the reports were true, was not simply facing Anne's silent record. She was facing the future king. She was facing the idea of Charlotte. She was facing the old royal machine when it decides the line must not be moved. And that machine can be merciless. Accounts from journalists and insiders reveal that resistance began building quietly inside palace walls. Not a public riot. A colder thing. Briefing notes. Historical reminders. Muted objections. The sort of internal pushback that does not need raised voices to do real damage. One reported message was devastating in its simplicity. Princess Royal was created for the direct bloodline of the sovereign, not for family connections gained through marriage. That single principle shut many doors at once. Then came Anne's shadow over all of it. The script describes her not as openly fighting, but as doing something perhaps worse for her critics, remaining steady. Sharp. Watching. It even includes a reported moment during an internal briefing, where Anne supposedly noticed an error in material prepared by Camilla's staff and delivered a dry, cutting response. Is there something missing, or am I simply reading a different version of reality? If that exchange happened as described, it was classic Anne. Quiet. Precise. Embarrassing. It mattered because it captured the true divide between image and substance. Camilla, in the critics' version of events, may have wanted the glow of title for Laura. But Anne represented the labor behind title. The history. The detail. The rules. The work no one claps for. That contrast turned palace tension into moral theater. And outside palace walls, public mood began to harden too. The script describes online reaction, sharp commentary, and even the phrase #hands-off and catching fire. Whether every detail of that reaction was equal in scale or not, the larger point is clear. Anne's public image gave her enormous protection in any symbolic fight like this. Camilla may have had the king's ear. And had respect. That is a dangerous balance inside any royal dispute. Then the confrontation moved into its hardest phase. Not gossip now. Law. Heraldry. Constitutional advice. The old machinery that exists precisely to stop emotional royal ideas from becoming dangerous precedent. According to the script, advisors and heraldic authorities pushed back with force. Princess Royal, they argued, was not a courtesy title, not a flexible household honor, and not something to be stretched for personal family advancement. One reported line from a constitutional lawyer captured the fear perfectly: if biological titles start being granted to marital additions, the monarchy stops being a monarchy and starts looking like a social club. That warning changed everything. Because once a royal idea starts sounding unconstitutional, even in private argument, the room goes cold. What began as gossip about a mother lifting her daughter's status now looked, in the eyes of critics, like a threat to the symbolic spine of the institution. And then came the final wall. According to the story you provided, the senior heraldic opinion was clear. The title could only be recreated when vacant, and only within the logic of royal bloodline tradition. Laura Lopes, whatever her private standing inside the extended family, did not fit that framework. That was the real exposure. The idea was not merely unpopular. It was structurally weak. It could not survive the weight of history pressed against it. And once that became obvious, the whole conflict took on a different shape. No longer a rising ambition. More like a failed push crashing into stone. Still, one truth remained. The full emotional damage was only just becoming clear. The complete picture, as told through the script's version of events, is less about one title and more about what royal life rewards, protects, and refuses to forgive. At first glance, this looked like a family matter. A mother. A daughter. A possible honor. Palace chatter. Nothing more. But accounts from royal watchers, insiders, and commentators suggest it became a test of something much deeper. Who gets to carry royal meaning? That is the truth sitting underneath all of this. Because the title of Princess Royal is not just decorative language. It is a symbol. And symbols are where monarchies live or die. They survive because people believe they still mean what they used to mean. The moment those meanings feel cheapened, stretched, or handed out too freely, trust begins to thin. That is why Anne stood at the center of this story with such force. She did not need to argue for herself. Her life argued for her. She had spent years doing the plain, heavy, repetitive work of monarchy. Visiting, opening, attending, representing, showing up. No glitter campaign. No soft focus myth. Just endurance. The kind that is hard to fake and impossible to manufacture overnight. So when critics of the reported Laura plan attacked it, what they were really protecting was not just Anne's title. They were protecting the idea that some royal honors must still be earned by bloodline and burden, not simply by entering the family circle through marriage. That is why public reaction, in the script, turned so emotional. Commentators framed Anne as the woman of duty and Laura as a private figure being pulled towards something she had not built the life to carry. The details were often cutting, and in repeated coats, and in muddy jackets at Gatcombe Park, and with horses, farmers, volunteers, sailors, regional duties, and working while others discussed status. That image was powerful because it felt believable. And then there was Charlotte. If Anne represented the present meaning of Princess Royal, Charlotte increasingly came to represent its future. The script treats this almost like destiny. It describes palace insiders seeing in Charlotte a straight line of continuity, royal blood, public grooming, ceremonial instinct, composure beyond her years. Not proof, of course. She is still a child. But in the symbolic life of monarchy, people start casting roles long before the moment comes. That is exactly what seems to have happened here. Charlotte became the answer to the crisis. Not because she needed the title now. Not because anyone was handing it to her. But because her existence made the reported Laura idea feel even more unnecessary, and even more out of place. If the proper future heir to the symbolism was already visible, why force some awkward modern rewrite in the meantime? The script's most brutal argument captures this perfectly. Even if Anne were gone before Charlotte was ready, the title should remain vacant and wait for the proper heir. That is not flexibility. That is doctrine. And it shows just how firmly many insiders were said to feel about this issue. Better an empty title than a broken one. Better delay than dilution. Better silence than symbolic confusion. Publicly, the fallout seems to have left, and stronger. The story paints her as emerging almost fused with the title itself. By the time the controversy fades, the idea of anyone else, especially Laura Lopes, holding Princess Royal begins to sound ridiculous even as a thought experiment. That is a striking outcome. Because it means the reported challenge, instead of weakening Anne's place, only hardened it. The title looked more protected than before. More ancient. more closed, more tied to the exact qualities and had come to represent discipline, courage, service, restraint. And what of Camilla? The script presents her ambition, if ambition it was, in a complicated light. Not as cartoon evil. More as a deep misreading of the institution she had entered at the highest level. On a human level, people can understand a mother wanting dignity for her child. That part is easy. But monarchy is full of traps exactly like this. Human instinct collides with ancient rule. Personal love collides with public symbol. And in that clash, the institution nearly always demands sacrifice. That seems to be the lesson here. Camilla, in the script's telling, tried to use an ancient tool of bloodline and rank to satisfy a modern family impulse. That was the category error. Not wickedness, perhaps, but misjudgment. A failure to grasp that in royal life, some doors are not closed because people are cruel. They are closed because once opened, the whole structure begins to wobble. That is why the reported retreat was quiet. No glittering finale. No public apology. No dramatic defeat. Just the Windsor method: close the file, lower the temperature, move on without admitting too much. And then? She kept going. The script ends her story in the most fitting way possible. Not with triumph on a balcony, not with some elegant revenge, but with more work. More travel. More engagements. More duty carried without fuss. That is why she remains so difficult to attack in these kinds of stories. She does not sell herself as noble. She simply behaves as if the work comes first. That is what gives her moral weight. In the end, the saga reveals something simple and old about power. Titles may look glamorous from a distance, but inside systems like monarchy, the ones that last are usually the ones tied to pain, patience, and long memory. Not everybody close to the crown can become part of its deepest meaning. Some remain near it. Some marry into it. Some benefit from it. But only a few are allowed to embody it. These stories provide insight into how royal life really works when the jewels stop sparkling and the family feelings meet the iron law of tradition. Princess Anne, in this version of the story, did not need to defend her crown of duty. She had already done that for decades. And that is why, when the whispers finally settled, one truth remained standing above all the rest: Princess Royal was never just a title. In Anne's hands, it became a standard. A standard others could admire, but not simply claim.